Guys, welcome to another session of the Hefluence podcast. My name is Michael David Huey. I'm the founder and CEO of Hefluence. And guys, as my guest today and I were just praying before we got started, where we are today, and whether you're watching this when this is going on or after it's what my guest and I believe when it's going to be over, things are going to get better. Most people have an outlook at things like this that, oh God, the economy is going to tank. And you know, whether you believe it or not, or however you see this as, I see it that God is for us and not against us. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and that there's no difference. So the coronavirus is nothing to God. And so I want you to be encouraged today. I want you to listen to this interview with my friend. I'm gonna do a little bit of an introduction, but as you guys who've been listening to the Hefluence podcast, I do not want to steal away from the joy of you getting to know our guest from him, from his mouth. And so what I do is I do just a brief introduction so that people can get to know him from him. And so today, my guest, he's actually an engineer, which is pretty freaking awesome. He's done some work with Boeing and other stuff. I remember our first conversation we had with him. I actually can remember a lot of what we said. And I thought about that last night and this morning as I was praying about our interview. He's also a transformational coach. He loves helping inspire people to walk in purpose, to fulfill their God-given talent with spirit, soul, and body, you know, everything that encompasses a person, right? He also lives in sunny California, which I believe right now it's 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's raining right now. And it's rainy, he says, but it's been really warm here in Florida. And so I know that he's usually teaches at Orange Theory and all the gyms are closed down. So I think there's some other things that we can do right now, like what we're doing today, to inspire people. My wife and I yesterday, we took advantage of it. We went on almost a 20-mile bike ride yesterday, which was so nice here in Florida. It was a little warm, but my wife and I just moved to the Orlando area, the Central Florida area, over in what I call it athlete heaven, because I'm over in Claremont where the Olympic training facility is, where 23 of the top U.S. sprinters in the world train. Noah Lyles trains here, Tori Bowie trains here, and the list goes on and on and on. And you know, so my big thing is I love watching, and plus all the foreigners come here to train too. Belgium, Holland, I mean, you name it, the list goes on and on. We see bikers galore. We're over here where we finally have hills to be able to train and work out. So, and I'm excited to hear from my guest today too, not only just because of who he is as a man and how he likes to inspire people, but who he is as a man of God, who God created him to be. So, guys, if you're hopefully you're not driving. If you're driving, then when you get a chance, we do both of these podcasts on video and on recording. Take some notes. Get to know my guest today, because I believe today is a God-ordained appointment for him to inspire you. So welcome to the Hefluence podcast, my friend Mitchell Graves. Mitchell, welcome, my brother.
Welcome, David. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for having me on today. And it's such a privilege and honor to be able to share the story and the message that God has given me. I tell everybody all the time, look, I'm just a messenger. And whenever I get a chance to share the message that God has given me, that's an opportunity. And I just thank the Lord for an opportunity to do so. And like Michael had alluded to, I grew up, born and raised in Mississippi, as a small town kid with big dreams. And I don't know if anybody can relate to being that one person with it, just kind of stand out. Just always had the big dreams. I wanted to be an astronaut from early on. I wanted to be the first man on Mars. That was my goal. And unlike a lot of kids, I was actually on the process of doing it. Now, I did some space camps. I did a special expedition with astronauts, and I knew a lot of astronauts personally by the time I was 14 to 15 years old.
Wow.
And so I was really on this trajectory to do that, and got kind of a special thing to go and finish high school in New York, instead of my school there in Mississippi, and then went on to aerospace engineering, to the best aerospace engineering program in the country at Embry-Riddle over there in Florida. And so,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know many people, Mitchell, that have actually been to Embry-Riddle, which is the
yeah.
best school for engineering.
And so Michael is right there. So Michael is in Claremont. My first ever college track meet was in Claremont.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yes. So, and I raced against some Olympians and got dusted.
And that's funny because Mitch, that's one thing that Mitchell and I have in common. I ran track at Ohio State, and he ran in college and stuff too. And it's funny that we had to have a lot in common. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And going through the tough times that we're going through right now, 2008, 2009 really taught me a lot about that, because I really, I found the Lord. I came back to the Lord, I should say, in 2007, over a Christmas dinner table with my brother-in-law and some friends, and having men in my life like that really changed the trajectory of my life, because my mom was a single parent, didn't have my father in the home. My father and I have a great relationship now. But growing up, I never really had men in my life like that. Never really had any consistent men in my life. My brother-in-law came along when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and he's been in my life ever since. And he and my sister have been married ever since. I got I got a niece and a nephew, and so he's the one who actually led me to the Lord. And that was in 2007. Then I graduated in 2008, and then the economy took a nosedive.
I was about to say that was probably God has a sense of humor when he gets you saved during a terrible economy, right?
Man. And so I talk about testing my faith, right? And so these trials come along, these crises come along, they really come along to authenticate your faith, and to build your foundation deeper. And so I was really involved in my church at that time. Got my calling to preach, started preaching, and I did that for about 2 years. And then finally, when the economy began to pick up, and I was teaching at the time, I started teaching in high school, math and geometry and algebra and stuff like that, and was kind of giving up on my dream to become an engineer. And the one thing I didn't say was, in 2000, I would say 2004 or so, I was in the Air Force ROTC, because again, my plan was to go to the Air Force, become a pilot, have my engineering degree, become a pilot, and then go on to become an astronaut, because I know I needed a technical degree, and I wanted to be a pilot because I wanted to be a commander astronaut. I wanted to fly the shuttle. And
wow.
I got medically disqualified from the Air Force ROTC. And they were like, you can't do this anymore. And I had asthma, I had a heart murmur, and you can't do this anymore. So I went and joined the track team. But it was devastating. A dream that I'd had since I was 5 or 6 years old. I get to 19 or 20 years old, and it's gone. And I have no plan B. Like, there is no plan B. And I remember praying to God in my dormitory one day and asking God, like, what do you want me to do in my life now? Like, what am I supposed to do? And the answer came back, minister. And I said, no. I'm not doing that.
No.
That's not the plan. That's not the plan. So that was 2004. 2008, I found myself in church. And praying and again, ministering and preaching the gospel. And I remember the first time I ever stepped up to preach, I don't know if anyone's ever felt like this before. Like, you step into something, you're like, no, this is what I was born to do. I was born to speak. I was born to give a message. I was born to give a message of hope to people. And did that for a couple of years, and then moved to Philadelphia. I got a job as an engineer in Philadelphia, and I did that for about 6.5 years. But what Michael was alluding to earlier was I got involved into the fitness business, because around that time, 2008, 2009, I began to look online for business, because I'm like, there was no jobs. So I was like, well, let me start a business online with something I know how to do. I've been in health and fitness all my life. My mom was an Olympian. She did 1968 Olympics. She was a gold medal in 1972. So I've been around health and fitness and athletic performance all my life. So this is something that I knew well. I knew how to help people in that arena. I said, well, let me get online and start creating some programs and some fitness programs and things like that. So wrote my first book in 2009 called Rapid Ripped Abs. I began to sell that stuff online, had my own blog. We did a bunch of videos. So I've been in the online fitness game for like 11 years at this point. And so one thing that recession of 2008 taught me was to have multiple streams of income. So I had my full-time engineering job. But then I would wake up in the morning and coach Orange Theory for 2 hours, then go to my engineering job while I had my online fitness business going on. So I had 3 streams coming in at the same time. And then eventually that online fitness business turned into a health coaching. That's what Michael was talking about. So I got away from just teaching people in their health to giving them a workout to wanting to transform people holistically. Because God led me down this path where they don't just need to work out, they need to work out and nutrition. They need to work out and nutrition and the psychology because some people are not able to stick with it. Now, beyond the psychology, they need the spiritual part of it because there's a spiritual aspect of this whole thing. There's a spiritual aspect to nutrition. There's a spiritual aspect to the way you think. There's a spiritual aspect to the way you move your body, right? And so being able to put this whole thing together has led me to where I'm at right now. 2018, I got married to my wonderful wife, Jenny. We met out here in California at a business conference in 2016. We got married in 2018, and then we had our son, Isaiah, in 2019. So Isaiah is 11 months. He's in there right now crawling around.
I love it.
And so it's been a whirlwind, and I've been right now working in the business full time, and then also I have some little side, again, multiple streams of income. I have some little side gigs as well.
Awesome. And you know, it's really funny during the economy, you know, it's yesterday, this past weekend, I made a decision a couple years ago, after, and Mitchell knows my story about what happened to my wife and I last year. And you know, and it was really funny. I shared this with one of the other guys, on this podcast, Caleb McGillens. And when you know, he said, Mike, I want to share something with you publicly that I think will maybe give you a sock, but it'll encourage you too. He said, you know, that 300,000 that you lost was really like losing $1 million. I was like, well, thanks for telling me that, Caleb, right? Like, I really wanted to hear that. He said, no, I don't tell you that to condemn you. I tell you that to know the direction that you were going and that God's getting ready to restore that and bring that back. And
Wow.
so I was on a leadership call last night that I had, and this past Saturday, one of those decisions I made was not to make my own products. And I had the opportunity to do that several times. After we lost $300,000, I had a company offer me a significant amount of money to make my own products. And I said no. And the reason I did it was because of leverage, because of time, and because I found something that I couldn't duplicate with doing that and making my own products. And so I totally understand multiple streams of income. Yesterday, this past weekend, I was on with close to 100 people, teaching them for 4 hours. And I was reading emails this morning and having some emotional times. My eyes are actually a little red from reading some of the emails for the last 2 days. I'm an emotional guy, and I just love that. So, Mitchell, tell me some things that you and your wife are doing now that you're a dad. Tell me some things that you guys are doing when it comes to your health, because right now, and I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is moving this interview up into the queue and getting it on quickly because of the times that we're in. What are some of the things that you're doing for listeners? You know, we're basically, most of the countries, especially California, y'all are locked up in your house. Y'all can't go anywhere, right? Like,
sheltered in place.
Yeah, California. If you're listening, California, Chicago, and New York are pretty much in lockdown, right? Because they're just told, hey, don't go anywhere, right? And so for most people, when you need to go somewhere, it's you. Like, I'm grateful my wife works in the nursing industry, so her job is always on. Like, they want her to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a couple of weeks ago, they gave her 45 hours, you know, and so she's not working because she needs to work. She's working because she enjoys what she does. And so what are some of the things that you and your wife are doing for your health during this time when we really, like, my gyms are closed, like, you know, even the one at my community where, you know, maybe there's 2 people in there at a time. You can't even get in, right?
No. Yeah. So, I mean, just covering our basics, man, you know, from a health standpoint, I believe, like Michael alluded to, we are a triune person, right? And so your spirit, soul, body, those are your 3. And any kind of transformation that you want to see physically needs to happen spiritually first. And that's the biggest thing that people miss. Everyone's always wanted to get the next workout, get the next meal plan, get the next guru, get the next diet book, or whatever it is, right? They're trying to fix an outside-in problem when it's really an inside-out problem. And so we have to we have to make sure that our triune, our hierarchy is in place, right? And so I have to wake up every day, make sure that I'm connecting with God, make sure that I'm hearing my assignment for the day. Because if I'm to be in a kingdom ambassador, influencing the earth for the kingdom of God, then I've got to get communication from heaven. I've got
Amen.
to stay connected, right? So make sure that my purpose, my prayer, and my position is right in my spirit. And then the second thing is from my soul standpoint. Make sure that I'm hearing and seeing the right kinds of messages. I want to be informed by the news, but I don't want to be feared by the news. I want to check
Amen.
the news. I don't want to watch the news, right?
Say that
And so,
again, Mitchell. Say that again. I don't want to be in fear, right?
I want to be informed, but I don't want to be in fear. So I listen to a little bit of a news clip and stuff like that. I make sure I curate my social media because, again, that's all part of my health, staying healthy,
Sure.
right? And so as I guard my gates, I guard what I see, I guard what I hear, and I guard what I speak, that begins to protect my soul. And so now more than ever, we're spending time in the Word of God because we need to stay healthy mentally, right? So we pray together, we talk to one another, we give each other's updates on the day, maybe some new news we found out, right? But again, we always refrain back to, okay, I understand what man says, but what does God say about who we are and how we're going to overcome in this situation, right? So we want to remain hopeful during this time. So I stay connected spiritually. That's how I stay healthy spiritually. And then I guard my gates, what I hear, what I see, what I speak. That's how I stay healthy mentally and make sure that my mindset is set on the right kinds of things. And then physically, that's the last arena, but that's the first thing that everybody turns to, right? So physically now, if I can't manage my mind, then there's no way I can manage my body, right? You always see people say, I don't feel like working out, or I don't feel like eating this. What? That's because they're not managing their minds. Feelings and those emotions come from your mind, come from your mind, right? So if I manage my thoughts, I can now manage my emotions, which then I can govern my body. I can have the confidence. I can have the motivation. I can have those things that I need to do. And so physically, what we're doing during this time is we have some home workouts, right? We're both.
I saw that.
So I'm going to be doing those on more of a regular basis now. And so my wife, she owned a boot camp business for 4 years. I've been a health and fitness coach, trainer for like 12 years at this point, 13 years at this point. So we both know how to move our bodies, right? And so we do some home workouts. I put a backpack on, put some books in it, get it moving. I get my son involved. He likes to do that kind of stuff. Make sure that we're eating clean. I know everyone right now is out eating the frozen foods and the canned foods. And
Not this guy. Not this guy.
So,
no, sir.
If you look at our refrigerator, it's full of produce, right? It's full of produce because the grocery stores are still open. We can still make it to the grocery store and get produce. And then from a sleep standpoint, as much as we can with an 11-month-old, we're trying to get regular sleep. But again, taking care of our gut. So I've got a probiotics. My wife, all three of us are on probiotics, a probiotic supplement that I get from a medical office. But then also eating some probiotic foods, like we have some yogurts in there. I want to start eating some more kefir and kimchi because, again, most of my immune system is housed in my gut. And so when I have a healthy gut, then that's going to make sure that my immune system stays strong. But when I govern all three of those arenas, plus in my physical arena, how I eat, how I move, and how I sleep, when I do those three well, as much as I can during this time, then, we can stay healthy. And this is a family. We get out on a regular basis. Like, it's raining a lot now for some reason, trying to keep everybody indoors. And God is so funny. But when the sun is out, we get out as a family. We get some sunlight because, again, that vitamin D
baby.
During this time. So we do that, but make sure we social distance. Make sure we stay away from everybody while we're out in the park. But
that's good.
That's what we're doing right now to stay healthy.
That's awesome. And it's really funny because my wife and I, I've been actually this year coming up next month is celebrating my 27th year in the fitness industry. It's amazing, right? Like, and when I look at myself, I feel 27 and I've been doing something for 27 years. Right. And it's really funny. I had a telomeres test done just recently and it told me I was 30. I had telomeres of a 35-year-old and I'm going to be 52 years old this year.
Wow.
So some of those switches things that I did, my wife and I do a pre and a probiotic. Also, I did my, my wife has a great explanation of it. The probiotics are the seeds and the prebiotic is the fertilizer. And so we're fertilizing our gut, right? And getting that, it's really funny. I was listening to a friend of mine who is a chief science officer of a company that we partner with. And he was talking about the blood-brain barrier that you were talking about. Yeah. And I think it's a significant thing to understand that the reason God said spirit, soul, and body. spirit, soul, and body. He didn't say
Yeah.
body, soul, and spirit, right? Because that's the way we have to think. And it's awesome that you said that. So Mitchell, talk about this. Tell me some things. Maybe there's some guys listening right now that are struggling in their relationships, like struggling in their, you said a couple things, but I think maybe we can hone in on that a little bit more.
Okay.
Some things that guys are doing to strengthen their relationships with their spouse, or maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a parent not having a good relationship. What are some things guys can do? And Mitchell, let me tell you why I say this. Before my wife and I transformed after 27 years in Tampa over here, we've only been over here for about 6 or 7 weeks now. And one of the really cool things was that I God ordained appointment at my last church, the Bible study that I did before we left. It was with a group of men. And at the end of the series, it said that 1 in 10 men have somebody that they can talk to about their health, their relationships, and their business. And then 1 in 20 men have a best friend. That really alarmed me. 1 in 20. So 10 out of 100 actually have a best friend. And then we started asking that question. And my pastor and I were the only 2 people that actually could say they fit in both categories.
Wow.
And that broke my heart. Like, I'm like, I came right over and I said, and Joe Martin texted me and said, why have you not started your podcast yet? You have to start your podcast. You have to get your message out to people. You know, too many people, the kingdom is waiting. And I was like, okay, I decided to start. So tell me some things maybe that's in your heart that you do to help strengthen relationships. Maybe it's with other men, maybe it's with your spouse, because that's what you like to do. So share some things about that.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you, Michael, this has been something that I've had to really work at. You know, growing up, I was basically in a single parent home, and I was the only child, pretty much. And so my sister is 14 years older than me. So by the time I was 4 or 5, she was out of the house in college. So I grew up very achievement oriented. My mom she really rewarded me for good grades and good athletic performance. And so I had like three different black belts in Taekwondo, and I was doing all these different sports, and I was a straight A student and doing all these different things, right? And so I was really an overachiever, a high achiever as a kid. But that alienated me from people sometimes because I had such big dreams. I couldn't relate to some of my peers who just wanted to worry about and wanted to do the different things around me. Mm-hmm. And so I was labeled as a smart kid. I was labeled as the nerd. I was labeled as, those kinds of things. I kind of knew how to get by socially so that I wasn't picked on. I wasn't done anything like that. But I knew how to survive socially, but I didn't know how to thrive socially. My wife is a thriver. She never meets a stranger. Her natural affinity is to build teams. And so
that's awesome. That's the opposite for us. So I'm your wife and you are my wife. So we're kind of the opposite. Like I'm Lisa's like, are you going to talk to somebody today? Or, she's like you and I'm like your wife. So it's funny.
Yeah. So my wife she's extrovert to the extreme, very social, and I get around her and I'm like, babe, you got this gift, right? I'm not introvert. I'm actually
in the middle. You're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. On a 10-point scale, I'm 6 points introvert, 4 points. I'm 6 points extrovert, 6 points extrovert.
That's my wife.
Introvert. Like
that's my wife, Mitchell. That's my wife.
Yeah,
that's my wife.
And so
she's a prophet. She's a prophet. And she gets the mic in the church, the pastor will give her the mic, but then she's like, quiet after that. So she's like you. She's like you.
Yes. So my wife's really taught me a lot about building relationships and maintaining those relationships. And so lately what I've been doing to some of my friends and some of my guy friends is just sending them a word of encouragement, man, during this tough time. Like,
I saw that. I stole that from you, even though I do it all the time.
Yeah.
You know that God can use someone even when you're maybe have like a little bit of lapse of when you do that. Mm-hmm. I saw you make a post on that and that inspired me. So thank you.
Yeah. And so what's my gift? My gift is hope. My gift is being a messenger of hope. That's a seed and that's a gift that God has given me. And Amen. So it says your gift will make room for you. So the more I use that gift, I see it makes room for me. So during my morning prayer time, my morning prayer time, God will lay some people in my heart, some of my friends, right? I have 4 really good close God friends, and so I'll send a message or a word of encouragement to them, like just conversation that we talked about, something that, and then the Lord will prophetically give me things to say to them, things that I hadn't even thought of, right? And so I'll just randomly check in on people, randomly message people, kind of give, and I always try to give a word of encouragement and something that is maybe something I saw on social media, something that we had a conversation about, or just in praying in my spirit. Sometimes I'll tell them all the time, like, I had a friend the other day, I texted him out of the blue, I was like, when are you going to start your church? He was like, what happened? Like, how did you know about that? I'm like, the spirit be snitching, man. He told me you were about to start a church. So when are you gonna start?
That's the best way to do it, right? Yeah.
And so stuff like that. So one, I stay connected to God because
is that hard for you, Mitchell, to being kind of in the middle of an introvert type of thing, of being wanting to? Do you ever just say like, oh man, I maybe today I'll just take a break, or I won't go?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I let my wife know. I let her know. Say, hey, honey, I need some time. And so maybe I'll go for a walk. We have these things called mountain days, where I'll go out to the mountain for a couple of hours, go climb a mountain for a couple of hours, and just be alone with God for a while. Or I go hike off in the woods and get lost for a little while. And so those are some of the things that I do to stay connected. But you talk about how do we govern relationships, especially with our spouse. And this is going back to the spiritual and the natural. And this has been the really big thing is whenever you have a problem in the natural, it means there's something off in the spiritual. And whenever my wife and I are not vibing well, we're not flowing. It's not flowing. We're not blissful. It's not extraordinary because we set a standard in our vision. Our vision for our marriage is extraordinary. Our vision for our marriage is blissful. Our vision for our marriage is existing in Eden that God has placed us in, right?
Amen.
So whenever we're outside of Eden, whenever we're not there, which we feel it, instead of attacking it naturally, hey, you did this, you need to stop doing this, and I need to do this, and even naturally taking responsibility, well, I need to do this better, I need to do, no. I need to go to God and say, Lord, where am I off with you? I've gotten out of position because it says that the righteous will not be forsaken, right? And
Amen.
so when I am righteous, when I'm in right standing with God, when I've spent my time with God, when I've been submitted to God, I don't have any sins. I've given those things over to Him, right? And now I'm able to hear and flow with God. Now the natural fruit of the Spirit is love. The natural fruit of the Spirit is patience. The natural fruit of the Spirit is kindness and mercy, right? And so the natural fruit, how I naturally just want to treat my wife, she loves it. It lights her up. It draws her closer to her. It draws her closer to God. And so if I'm not naturally doing those things, if I'm having to force myself to do those things, that means that I'm out of position. And so that's the main thing that we do to keep our relationship healthy is we give each other time. Like she goes for her walk in the morning. I make sure that I take Isaiah and make sure that she has time to go for her walk and spend her time with God. I do my morning activation routine every single morning where I spin up, I get up and I pray and I connect with God, even if it's for a few moments, because I can't exist in my day functionally properly without being connected. And so when we do that, that's when our relationship continues to grow, flourish, and thrive. But it's not so much the practices that we do. It's how connected we stay. Because when we stay connected, the practices just simply flow.
It's good.
Things that used to set her off, she brushes them off, and vice versa. If I forget something, or if I don't clean something up around the house, or if I forget something, an appointment that we were supposed to make, if she's been with God and she's connected with God, she's naturally more forgiving. And
wow. That was for me, Mitchell. That was for me. I'm going to make sure I go back and listen to this with my wife so we can grow and do that too. So thank you.
And the same thing. So the biggest mistake people make is they try to foster relationships out of the flesh. You can't do that. You can't do that. God is relational. He's a triune being in one. God is relational. And so to be kingdom means to be relational. But in order to do that, I'm telling you this from a not very relational person. The best way that I've learned to be relational is not all the tactics, right? It's just getting and staying connected, and the Spirit will lead me into the tactics.
Amen. Amen. And that's so good. That's so good. So that was for me. For all you listening, that may have been for you, but Mitchell, that was for me, brother. Thank you so much. And so Let me just tell you this. So my best friend, who is actually getting ready to join me in business, we're going to do multiple things together. We're going to do we're going to do biohacking together. We're going to do some conferences together. I'll encourage you, Mitchell, to go back and listen to my interview with him. He's the first person that I had on my podcast. His name is Tim Douglas.
Okay.
And he loves to do what you do. He loves to hike and get out on his own. He just moved back to South Carolina with his family. And he was here for 4 days, and I went up there for a day and spent the day with him. And you guys have a lot in common. So I'm going to do a connection with getting you guys in common. And so that leads me kind of into my next question is I wish I would have done this 20 years ago. But this last year I went into a community, didn't get what I felt God wanted me to do, get from it. And God told me to close the door on it. And it was kind of funny how he did that. But I met two of the most incredible humans I've ever met. So God will always turn things around for his good and for our good, right? When we're in upright standing. And so we became accountability partners. And so every Wednesday from 3:30 to 5, it's non-negotiable. We spend 90 minutes on Zoom together. Wow. And we talk about our relationships. We talk about if we're struggling with something, we share it. We do 45 minutes business and we do 45 minutes personal.
That's good. Okay.
And so tell me some things and what your mindset is when it comes to accountability. Because it was really cool. I mentioned this on a couple other podcasts, but my friend Nicholas Barely said this to me, and it's ingrained in my brain. And I shared it with a bunch of people. God's the real great definition that of accountability is somebody holding you accountable for your abilities. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's your God-given abilities because God implants, I shared this, Ed Milet has a little video that says one day he knows that he's going to stand before God, and God is creating this Ed, right, with all his gifts and all his talents and everything. He said, I don't know about you, but when I stand before God, I don't want to look at that person and him be a stranger. Mm-hmm. I want him to be my twin, right? And so when I'm putting my arm around my twin and walking into the gates, I hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant. And I put my arm around that guy and I walk in knowing that I did become that gift and all those gifts. So talk about accountability from your perspective and what you think about when you hear that.
It's interesting because a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, last year I had accountability sessions with two other guys, and we had this curriculum that we were going through, and it was really good. And then once the 12 weeks was up, we kind of went our different ways, but we're really good friends. Like our wives are really good friends, and we're really good friends, and we've all stayed connected and everything like that. The guys live locally, and I see them on and off, and we have regular contact. They text me, I text them, stuff like that. And one of the guys, my friend Steve, hit me up recently, a few weeks ago, and he was like, man, we really need to jump back into accountability again. And so we just shared some things that we've been personally going through collectively together and how we need the accountability. And then I heard this podcast, and I actually heard this email message, and this guy was like, the purpose of accountability, all right, is to get leverage against yourself. That's the whole point. He's like, the purpose of accountability is to get leverage against yourself. And so people who set a goal, right, I think it's like 35% are likely to achieve it. People who write it down maybe are 50%, but people who write it down and tell it to somebody who they're accountable to, it shoots up to like 85 to 90% likelihood that they're going to actually achieve that goal.
Yes, sir.
And here's the thing, it doesn't matter who they tell it to. They've done studies on this. It doesn't matter. As long as that person is willing to show up, be prepared, they don't have to have any expertise. They don't have to have any understanding or knowledge. Just the fact that you're able to show up on a regular basis and say, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what I'm trying to do. You get leverage on yourself. And so I was telling my friend this. I'm like, you know what?
Isn't that good? And Mitchell, as you're saying that, just think about it. That's faith, right? Yeah. Like faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, but manifesting it with your mouth, right?
Yes, exactly. So you're speaking those things that are not as if they were, right? And so, so Steve and I actually have a call today. We have our calls short. Ours are only about 15 and 30 minutes. And so we hop on, hey, here's what's going on, and a quick catch up, and we go on from there because, he has kids. I have my son during the day full time. So we have to fit it around our lifestyles, around our current lives. But we do that on a weekly basis. It's just a quick phone call. But I would encourage people, hey, find people that you gravitate to. Like, I met Steve a few years ago, and I call him my brother. I'm like, I see his wife. I'm like, where's my brother? You know, like we naturally gravitate toward one another, and it's just a natural bond that we have. And so I would encourage somebody, you know, it's a lot easier when you want to have the accountability to find somebody that you both just kind of gravitate toward. And that's not a necessity. You know, you can connect and bond over business, or connect and bond over being a dad, connect and bond over your industry, connect and bond over just being healthy and fit and moving, whatever. Find some type of commonality. You don't have to be common in every area, in every arena of your life, but just find some commonality and find some reason. And if another reason, if you can't you can't pay somebody, like find a coach, find a personal trainer, find somebody and pay for that accountability. Find a mentor, pay for that accountability, right? Or meet somebody. So I have another friend of mine who's holding me accountable from a business perspective. He's coaching me. So the more layers you can get, the better off you're going to be.
I love it. And I do the same thing. You know, I would probably, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'll just say this because, when my friend Tim was here and spent 4 days with me, he said, Michael, oh my God, you've been in all these masterminds. You won an award at Thrive, which is the #1 entrepreneur event every year for entrepreneurs from Inc. and Huffington's Post. You won Monumental Business Award of the Year. He goes, you've been in masterminds. You spent, you know, VIP days with this person and this person. And he goes, dude, you have $1 million worth of stuff. And I was convicted. He's like, how much analysis paralysis have you had with all of this stuff? He said, that's why you make some of the decisions you made, because you have all this stuff and your environment is here, but you haven't stepped into that environment. And I always say this, I think the 2 laws, I'm a big John Maxwell fan, because I think he teaches you from a biblical perspective, and he teaches you how to incorporate God into your business. And the 2 favorite laws of his is the law of intentionality and the law of the environment. Because the environment that you put yourself in will be manifested by the people that you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah.
He said this on a call one day that I was on, a Zoom call. He said, if you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, he said, get out of the room as quickly as you can, right? And I thought, wow, what a profound statement for most people, because I really believe this, and I'm not saying that this is how Mitchell thinks, but I'm just saying that I've found this is that. I believe that people have a preconceived notion about a lot of things, and they don't do some of the things that Mitchell was talking about, and they don't pray, and they don't allow themselves to be open to multiple streams of income, to relationships, we have to be protective of that. We have to be protective of that, but we also have to put ourselves in the right environment to let those things. So why don't you talk about this? Why don't you tell me some good insights that you use with your coaching clients, some things that you use that help people stay focused, because you just talked about it. So about hiring a coach, what you do, tell me some of the things that you're doing that you've learned to implement, and maybe somebody can do that and take them and implement them also.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I see people missing is neglecting the spiritual and their natural transformation. So when people come to me and they say, hey, Mitchell, I want to lose some weight, or hey, I want to, get rid of my diabetes, or hey, I want to, run faster, or I want to run this 10K or whatever it is, right? Now, I've coached athletes, I've coached world-class athletes. I've coached, the stay-at-home moms. I've coached, and everywhere in between, right? And everyone's coming to me, and the initial mistake that everyone comes to me is they come to me looking for tactics. Hey, I need another meal plan, or I need another diet plan, or I need another exercise plan, something like that. Or can you help me with these things over here? And I say, look, yes, I can help you with those things, but you actually need, and then after sitting down and explaining to them, like, no, you need more than that. And let me coach you and help you and guide you along this journey. So the biggest insight that I've seen from people is that I tell people all the time, look, your health is a gift from God. It's not something that you have to earn not something that you have to work for. And the biggest mistake that I see people make is they think they have to grind for their health. I'm like, no, God wants you to grace. He wants to grace you with health. And so having an understanding that wellness is your natural default. Wellness is your natural default. Spirit, soul, body. Wellness is your natural default. And so anything outside of that is abnormal, right? And so we need to bring you back to the normal through different methods and different ways. And then a third thing I would say for people is helping them understand that your health is mission critical. The biggest malady that I see people living in their life is that they don't have a mission in life. I see people who are overweight. I see people with different health conditions. I understand that overweight and obesity is a very complex issue. I've coached people through that thing. It's complex, right? But the biggest thing that I see is when people don't have a mission or direction for their life, talk about the law of intentionality, they just do whatever, right? And so if we're not governing our minds, then our bodies are going to govern our mind. And we become slaves to our appetites, slaves to food, slaves to sex, slaves to comfort, slaves to,
sin, right?
Sin. And so our appetites become perverted. That's the first thing that Satan attacked in Eden to Eve was her appetite.
Yep.
And that's the first thing he went for Jesus in the wilderness was his appetite. He says, if you be the Son of God, turn this stone into bread. And he said, and here's what a redeemed appetite says. A redeemed appetite says, my food, my nourishment doesn't come from food, it comes from God. So I don't need this food right now to sustain and to live. And that's a whole different way of looking at things is I govern my body doesn't govern me.
Yes.
So helping my clients understand that no, you have power, you have authority, you have the right to govern your body. You have the right. Health is your inheritance from your Father. He wants you to be healthy. He wants you to be successful because he sent you with a mission and a purpose. And in order for you to accomplish that mission and the purpose that he has for you in this earth, you have to be healthy to do those things. And the biggest revelation I get this is when Jesus went to the cross. Right? My wife went to Israel and she saw the road that he had to take back.
The road to Damascus, right?
The road to Damascus and the Via Dolorosa. They had to
the Via Dolorosa. Yeah. Okay.
His trial. She's like, Mitchell, this was miles up and down hills. Like he had to be in shape to do this, and then to do that
carrying a cross too, 100-pound cross, right?
Exactly. Doing that all night, then to get beat, then to carry a cross. And I'm like, man, we wouldn't have a savior if he was overweight. We wouldn't have a savior. Like he had to be healthy to do that. And so I'm like, wow, our health is mission critical. So whatever mission that God has sent you on this, first understand what your mission is. If you're not clear on that, then nothing has any semblance of meaning. You're just eating to eat. You're just eating to look better. You're just exercising to look better. I'm like, no, get clear on your mission first. And now eating should serve your mission. Your movement should serve your mission. Your rest, which is an act of faith, that should serve your mission. The way you govern your mind should serve your mission. Everything is going to be funneled into that mission. But when people don't have a mission, that says in the Bible that when there is no revealed vision, people throw off restraint. They have no discipline when they don't have any vision. So first thing is to get that vision, and then the discipline will follow. Yeah,
absolutely. And my grandmother said that all the time. She says people perish. She said people perish, right? Like they fall. It's the saying. Many are called, but few are chosen, right? Like many of us are called. And Mitchell, I said this the other day. I said, we either in God's will, in God's perfect will, in God's permissible will, or out of God's will, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us teeter back and forth between God's permissible will and God's perfect will. Well, to me, what I did by moving didn't make sense to man, but it made sense to God, right? Exactly. And so let's finish up with this, and then I want you to tell people how they can connect with you and reach you and during this time. Tell us one thing that maybe somebody's listening today that is in your spirit that they can go and implement right now. Maybe they're stranded at home. Maybe they're looking for multiple streams of income. My biohacking company is the stock is up 300% in the last year, and right now our business is growing like crazy when other people are wondering like what's going on, like what are we to do? and I've put myself in an environment of healthy people, spirit, soul, and body, but they're taking action, not reaction, right? So tell me one thing that maybe somebody listening today can do, take action like right now with the circumstances that you're dealing with.
Yeah, understand that what you do physically starts mentally, right? And so if you're not feeling like working out, if you're not feeling like eating right, if you're not feeling like taking care of yourself, if you're not doing those things, if you feel like just vegging out on the couch and watching and binging on Netflix series and stuff like that, the one thing you can do right now is to start governing your mind. Spend some time with God. Get clear on how he's preparing you in this season, because this is a season of preparation, right? This is a season of preparation. When there's panic, there's time to, when there's people are panicking, it's time to prepare, because when things calm down, you want to be in the right position to take advantage of all of the purpose and the potential that's out there, right? So start preparing right now. Start governing your mind. Spend some time with God. Spend some extra time if you're away from home. If you're at home, people get thrown off on this when they say, "Well, what can I do tactically during this time to work?" I'm like, no. If you spend some time with God first, get connected first, right? Get connected first, and then we go work out, and then we go eat right, and then we go sleep, and then we go do it all. Because if we're not doing those things, if we're not spending time with God, and then we're trying to take care of our body, then you're only. This is where people fall off the wagon. They start and they stop because they have no reason to keep going. The purpose of a thing is determined by the maker of that thing, right? The purpose of a thing is determined by the maker of that thing. And so you are a created being, which means you have a purpose. And the only person that can give you that purpose and understanding, because he knows why he created you, is God. And when you do that, now you understand how to move, how to exercise. All those things have meaning and purpose. Now you know, and now I should do a high intensity interval training over here, or now I should eat this kind of a diet for this kind of energy, or now I should do. Why? Because I have a mission and a purpose that I'm going for. And I can tell you that people with purpose, they've done studies on this, people with purpose live longer. They're healthier, right? They're more joyful. They're more excited about life. And so if you don't have that purpose, if you don't have that time, now is the time that you're off from work, that you're sitting at home. Now is the time to get clear on that purpose right now.
Amen. And you know, it's really funny. I have my wife, this place that we moved into is twice as big as where we were living before. So I have this upstairs loft area as my office. And to be honest with you, Mitchell, it's freaking awesome. And I have my bookshelf here, and I have different levers of bookshelves. I have personal development, and I have relationship here, and I have fitness here. I have all these different layers. And I've told people, like, you know, I'm investing, you know, like His Needs, Her Needs for Men and Women is one of the greatest books I've ever read. Love Busters, one of the best books I've ever read. I mean, you can just go on and on and on about, you know, what do we think about when we pray, you know, fasting, you know, all these things that we can do to read and grow and evolve. So thank you for sharing that. Why don't you tell us how people can connect with you and reach with you on different platforms, and how you can connect with each other?
Yeah. I was going to say the last point I was going to say on that last piece is right now is a time of so much pain, so much, you know, potential, but to find the problems right now. Start finding the problems, start solving the problems, because there's always going to be a profit in the problems, right? When you solve problems as an entrepreneur. So there's always an abundance around you at all times. There's never any lack in the kingdom. And so as a kingdom citizen, that we never live in lack. We always live in abundance. And so I'm looking for the abundance of opportunities right now. And so speaking of that, one of the best ways you can connect with me, I'm actually going to do a great download for your listeners, Michael. They can go to fitclubacademy.com/Hefluence, fitclubacademy.com/Hefluence. And so they'll get a downloadable that will help you discover your purpose, right? Help you discover your mission, but then also give you the tactics on what to do physically in your health once you discover that mission. What exercises make sense for you now? What foods and diets make sense for you now? What kind of sleep patterns make sense for you now, right? How to take care of your health and your body so that your health is mission critical. And understanding that your health is a gift from God, something He wants to give from you. So they can go to fitclubacademy.com/Hefluence. You can connect me on Instagram at Fit with Mitch. That's FIT with Mitch. I'm kind of active on there. You'll see my stories more than anything. But more than anything, the best place to connect with me is through my personal profile on Facebook. And that's just Mitchell Graves. And connect with me there. Let me know that you came in from the Hefluence podcast, and I'll be sure to welcome you and greet you and stuff like that. And I just want to be able to serve you in any way that I can and help you along this health journey that you have to become the best version of yourself.
Amen. And guys, that's what we're here for. That's what this is connecting with like-minded people, guys that have the same vision, the same mission, purpose, the things of wanting to help people walk in purpose. Okay. So, and I will put all of that information in the show notes. My editor is phenomenal. He'll put all that stuff in there and be able to have you connect with Mitchell. So guys, listen, if this has inspired you today, please do me a favor. You need to be listening to solid quality. There's a ton of stuff you can listen to out there. Mitchell can tell you there's podcasts galore.
Yeah.
But I believe that these are God-ordained appointments. I've been blown away. I go back and listen to these afterwards, and just my wife and my friends, we had one day last week, we had close to 100 downloads. It was awesome because of different stuff that went on. So go and share these with people. Subscribe, do a review on the podcast after you listen to it. As Mitchell said, right now is a great time to start investing in listening and growing, reading, listening, growing. And so, Mitchell, thank you so much for being with us today. Guys, if this inspired you, like I said, share it with people. But thank you guys for listening today. And until the next session of the Hefluence podcast, go and love God, love people, and live with passion. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.